where you live shouldn't determine how well you're cared for as you age, but in New Zealand it often does, because ageing in a city and ageing in a rural or regional area can be two very different experiences, especially when it comes to rest homes, aged care and accessing specialist care.
So in this bite-sized episode, we're talking about why rural families often face harder choices, longer waits, tougher outcomes, and what that actually means when care is needed. We're joined once again by Tracey Martin, Chief Executive of the Aged Care Association of New Zealand.
Tracey, once someone needs a rest home, even if they've made peace with that part of the process, there tends to be an assumption that there's going to be a rest home close by in the same vicinity.
Yeah.
But there's actually quite a big divide between city and rural, and even within some cities as well.
Yeah.
Can you talk to that point?
Sure. So what we've got is we've got a developing number of communities, let's call them communities, right? And at the moment, they're predominantly rural and regional, like Wairoa and Reefton, that have absolutely no provision of residential care. And there's a research project being done by the University of Auckland at the moment. They're door knocking through Wairoa and Mahia to find what are the levels of care that are needed in that area, because our health system has no idea. So when their elders need a high level of residential care, they are being shipped out of their area and away from their families. And if you think about Wairoa, it's either to Gisborne or it's into the Hawke's Bay. How many times have those roads been closed recently?
Mm-hmm.
So,
and it's a good 3 hours either way.
Exactly. So there's a cost now to families as well. So the other thing, though, what we've seen in the last fortnight is we've now seen that there are no dementia beds in Dunedin, and they had been shifting people out of, they being the system, had been shifting people out of rural and regional areas to more urban areas, but now the urban areas are full.
So then what happens?
Well, that individual needed to be shipped to Nelson. Now, how are you going? Yeah, how are you going to visit that person if you're as a family member? And how are they known? I mean, the staff will do the best they can do inside whatever facility they are placed in, but they're not known.
So you're saying that if you live in a rural area or out of a bigger city, smaller town, then it's stacked against you. There's not the clinicians, there's not the beds.
Yeah. And of course, the other thing that's happening is seniors are moving out of the cities.
Yeah.
They're trading down their houses in larger cities and buying
Tell me about it.
Yeah, rural and regional areas that are very cool communities, but the access to residential care is much restrained. Yeah. So, it's a really interesting dilemma at the moment.
I think that's an interesting point that I'm not sure we all understand properly, but as you have different levels of complexity, you need different levels of care.
Yeah.
And not all facilities can offer the same or the differing levels of care. Dementia being one where often it needs to be a standalone facility or an enclosed with particular qualified clinicians and carers.
Yeah.
Like it can be pretty confronting, a dementia ward.
Yeah.
Not every facility, town has that. Dementia is probably the extreme where we just don't have enough. The ratio of beds to demand is the biggest, is it for that?
And the specialised care.
Yeah, the specialised care. So you're right. The dementia is increasing. 1 in 4 of us is, predicted to have dementia within the next 25 years. So we need to be working on that provision.
Yeah.
Excuse me. But also, because acuity is so high, because we've done such a good job on keeping people at home for longer, we need more hospital beds, or what we call transition beds. They could be a rest home bed for when you first arrived, but then you're aging. You continue to age. It doesn't stop when you go into care. So that bed may need to be turned into a hospital-level bed for 24-hour care.
So you just need to explain that, because that's confusing, isn't it? Because it's in a rest home, retirement village. No, it's in a residential aged care facility.
Yeah.
It's a bed. When you say it could go from rest home level care to hospital level care. It's not a bed that's then put into a hospital. So just so we can understand.
Yeah,
that.
so my apologies. So what it means is that the level of care that you are provided steps up to meet your needs. So when you're in a rest home level care bed, that you're able to, with the assistance of a healthcare assistant, walk down to the dining room and, sit with others for a meal. You go on outings, all those other sort of things. But as you age, you may end up needing hospital level care. So you might be in the same room, in the same physical bed and so on, but now there's more nurses and nurse care involved. You're very seldom as mobile as you were previously. So you now need more help for personal care and all that sort of thing. And one of the things that we need to do in the system, if we get back to the rural and regional, is the way that we used to fund and build residential care facilities they used to specialise. So you would have just rest home only beds, or they might have rest home and hospital level beds. In Wairoa, they need, like what the Australians have done for their isolated communities, they need a thin markets model, is what they call it, which is that Wairoa might need 5 rest home level beds, 7 hospital level beds, 3 dementia beds, and then you're not going to get psychogeriatric care in Wairoa. And among those core levels of care, you can have revolving respite for members that are out in the community. You can have day programs. Small rural and regional towns need a diverse offering in one place. And the funding model just doesn't work for that at the moment.
Because how much does it cost to build one of these hospital beds or the room that accommodates the bed?
Well, I think I've seen something like $18,000 or something. I think I'm way underestimating that. It's like 300,000, isn't it? But what they've done in Australia is they have, for these thin markets, they have said, okay, we know that a 42-bed hospital level bed facility is what would allow somebody to break even. But you don't need 42 hospital beds in Wairoa. So we're going to give you, the approved provider, the lump sum, and it will be a charity, the lump sum of what is the equivalent of 42 hospital beds. You prove to us that you are delivering for that community. And that's what they're doing in Australia. It's successful. Yeah.
Just going back to the poor chapel or woman who's in Southland and now in Nelson, is that really common? Because that's really alarming.
It's becoming more common. I think that's the problem. And then when there is a bed available back in Dunedin, they will move that individual back to Dunedin.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that if we put 12,000 more beds into the system, that would never happen. But what we know is that it happened less often than it is at the moment. Yeah.
And what is the impact when you are separated from your family and that connection is lost? Because there must be, the impact must just be catastrophic. But
yeah, well, I mean, if you think, first of all, this was a dementia patient. So this is a person with dementia. And if you think again that what we need is consistency, people who know you, safe environments, you are known to them, so they know what the triggers are and so on and so forth. And you're still you're still a person that was loved and cared for before you needed to go into a care facility. And the guilt, come back to the guilt now of family that can't go and visit from Dunedin to Nelson. We break people. We're breaking people.
So what does it do to the adult children, the partners who want to stay involved in care? Suddenly you've got to drive all these hours.
Yeah.
Probably can't afford it. You probably don't have the time to do it.
It's nuts, right?
And then if they've got dementia, I suppose the temptation is to think, well, they don't know I'm there anyway.
That's right. Yeah. And so therefore that individual's on there. And it is, and I mean, having had a grandfather with dementia that found himself in, the locked ward at Palmerston North Hospital, which was traumatic to visit. I mean, the care facilities that we're talking about are nothing like what was that locked ward that I visited my grandfather in. They're so calm and peaceful and well managed compared to what my experience was. But because it was traumatic, family members would not go because it's really difficult to then leave that individual in that environment. So yeah, there's a lot of really difficult things to deal with.
Other dilemma, of course. I mean, we're getting older. You might have noticed, and we're living in rural Canterbury now. So 40 minutes out of Christchurch. And I mean, it's pretty hard for me in a way to think about.
You're on the Brightly membership.
Well, that's right. I'll be sweet. Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean,
It is a reality.
is it basically saying elderly people or older people can't afford to live in a small town?
Yeah, and well, at the moment, that's the messaging that system's putting out, and it just cannot be true. If you think about the Wyndham Trust Home and Hospital, which is, I think it's either 20 or 40 minutes outside of Gore, 100% community owned. They have large numbers of local volunteers that come in to sit with the residents and that there. They're all from that community. It's in the middle of farmland, which is the environment that they spend all their lives in.
So peace.
And one of the things we're sort of advocating for is an infrastructure grant fund for charities and community trusts. If they had a fence around what is their property, not locked doors, a fence around their property, 89% of those with inside that facility have cognitive decline, but they would be safer and they could stay longer inside that community-owned care facility.
Yeah.
With that imbalance between rural access to support or accommodation, residential care, and the city, and there are challenges in the city as well, right?
Yeah.
But at the moment, we're just talking about the imbalance between the two. What do you think will happen if we don't address it?
Well, I think Wairoa has shown us what happens. 50 families in Wairoa, post-Cyclone Gabrielle, had to look after their own in extreme circumstances. So either with dementia, that there was no secure care facility there, or they were hospital level, and with the support of district health nurses or the Wairoa Hospital, they kept them at home for as long as possible. And it's breaking families. So the side effect is that in the end of the day, the state will actually have to carry the cost, because not only will they have...
Right?
Yeah, that's right. So when it's said that there isn't enough money and we can't afford this, actually, one, there's a social contract, there is no alternative. This is clinical care that we're talking about. So that is part of the social contract. But one way or another, when we break the families, what do we go? Either we leave the citizen on the street with nobody looking after them, or we have to take them in. And obviously we have to take them in. So planning to do better by our families and by those who need care, eventually it saves us all money, as well as we don't break people the way we are now.
And is that's what aged care is part of your remit, I suppose?
That's what I'm attempting to do. That's what I'm attempting to do.
You go for it.
Get that recognised, and let's actually fix this.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Well, good luck with that.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing it.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
This is one of those conversations that's uncomfortable, but really important, because where you live shouldn't decide how connected, supported, or dignified your later years are. And while not everything is within our control, understanding the system earlier gives families more choices later.
And if today's episode raised questions for you about planning, staying independent longer, or perhaps reducing the chance of a crisis, that's exactly where Brightly can help. Right, Hannah?
Yes, absolutely. Head to agebrightly.co.nz to learn more about our proactive whole-of-person support for ageing well. Thank you for listening to The Next Bit.